entertaining digital education.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for clarifying on the difference between innovation and invention. And the good name, the big name like Ford or Graham Bell, all these
Edison,
people, all the Rice brother,
Edison, right.
And innovation, it's been the subject that has been raised up by us. Remember by Peter Drucker, he talked about innovation.
Exactly.
And he I think he pioneered that innovation, and then later on it's come up to another professor, the late Christensen, right? And he talked about the it's not a breakthrough innovation, but it's more
disruptive
innovation. That's correct. And so we see why there's a disruptive innovation, why there's a kind of incremental innovation. So can you clarify this a bit?
Well, I mean, I work with people and organizations who are attempting to improve themselves, right? So usually focused on the individual or the team that's going to become more innovative. Now, the disruptive innovation, to seek out with a goal of disruption, is different. I mean, and usually that, in my experience and in studying this, I'm sure you've studied even more because you focus so very tightly on innovation, but the innovations that turn out to be so disruptive, I'm not so convinced that those individuals or companies set out to be disruptive. That might have resulted in that, but what they were trying to do is either create something new or create a new way of delivery, right? And it turns out that by being on that I would just say they are closer out on the edge. And when I talk about the edge, I think we mentioned this before, but the circles, concentric circles, where you're in your comfort zone and you go outside the comfort zone, you're in a growth zone. But if you go outside the growth zone, you're in the panic zone. And I really believe that those companies, and when I look at disruptive companies, my brother worked for two of them, works still for one of them, for WeWork right now in the US. WeWork, Uber. Yes, and Uber was his previous company. So if you talk about very disruptive, I mean, and they are out on the edge, right? Yeah. They're facing, when they're disrupting whole industries, they come up with issues with legal, right, societal, cultural. You see that my background is different today. This is not a virtual background. I happen to be on the
so what can you tell us why you wear this shirt and why and the bag with all this
and the background? Well, let me start with one thing. I'm staying right now in an Airbnb. So I'm in Onjuku, which is on Chiba, near the coast, about an hour and a half. Actually, by car, which we came today by car, it's about 2.5 hours from Tokyo. And it's in an Airbnb. Now, Airbnb, is that big in Cambodia or not?
Airbnb, yes, it is.
Yeah,
it's so in here as well.
In Japan, it's very regulated. They came in like they tried to do around the world and around the US. But in Japan, it's very regulated. The hotel industry is very strict. The private inns, small inns have a lot of power, and neighbors don't like strangers in their area. So Airbnb's had a very difficult time, but we are in a real Airbnb. They have a sign outside saying they're an Airbnb. So that's one innovation, right, that I'm taking advantage of. The other, thank you for mentioning this shirt. Now, it looks a little strange. What this is, this is a combination of two very innovative organizations. One is the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead was a rock band from the 60s. And the other is the San Francisco Giants. It's a baseball team. Now, you might say, well, how are they innovative? I'll give you an example. How is the Grateful Dead innovative? How are the San Francisco Giants innovative? And then look what they've done. They combine their marketing, shirts, for example, and other things where they're combining two very different entities. One is a baseball team and one is a rock band. The Grateful Dead's biggest innovation was during the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, when they were performing. During that time, most bands would be very strict about who's recording their concerts. They would collect at the gate. They would take people's recorders, right? Most bands would not be allowed. They would not allow fans to make tape recordings. But the Grateful Dead promoted. The Grateful Dead said, please bring your cameras, bring your recorders. You can record anything you want. You can show what we're doing live anywhere for free. They didn't charge people for this. They didn't make copyrights, nothing like that. And they created a personal kind of, the following that fans had for them was so big that they wound up making, and still today are making, tons and tons of money when the band is no longer in existence. I mean, the original members, a few of them have passed away. Still, they're doing a little bit of touring, but the marketing they're doing with clothing, with just ways that they are still able to make money. So that was a band. The San Francisco Giants almost left San Francisco because they didn't have money to make a new stadium. And instead of relying on the government to help them, they required new season ticket holders to fund the stadium by purchasing licenses, which is like purchasing a right to buy tickets. So that was a way they were able to self-fund their team. Now, this team is one of the most successful sporting franchises on the planet. I mean, they're successful. This year, they're the best on the field as well, but just the marketing, the way they bring people in, the way they draw, and then combining two very different things into something new.